Oftentimes, when people tackle a large goal, it's really hard to keep yourself motivated through the many months, sometimes several years of training for that goal or working towards that goal. This applies to pretty much everything in life, whether it's your career, your schooling, starting a business, and of course, Ironman training. I've noticed this in myself as I've gotten a little bit more experienced in my training that I find more things to be proud of in myself as I progress through my training and that help push me forward. And so I'm just going to call this the power of small wins in Ironman training. Now, there's something that these small wins do to you when you allow yourself to recognize certain milestones or certain feats as wins. It kind of brings forward the tangible aspect of progress to you in your training, allowing you to feel like you're actually gaining traction towards your goal. Now, one thing that I, as a beginner, did, which was wrong, was I always had my mind on like the very far goal and only the very far goal of, say, running or completing an Ironman. So no matter what I did in my training, I couldn't quite ever feel too happy with myself about my training because the only goal that I had in mind was to complete the Ironman. So until I achieved that goal, I hadn't achieved any wins in my training. And at some point, I, maybe naturally or maybe through just a bit of self-reflection, started to find myself becoming proud of smaller and smaller efforts throughout my training that allowed me to feel like whether or not it was major or minor, I was still moving in the right direction or even better. Now, this isn't like every day or every week even. Sometimes it's every week, but I try to structure these goals so that, or these wins, so that they can at least happen once every other week. And the way you do that is by properly structuring your training. The reality is, if you're structuring your training properly, you'll be making very incremental improvements week to week. Sometimes those improvements aren't always noticeable, and that's why structuring your training in a way where you allow yourself to notice them is like key in this. The way I do that is my weeks are typically carbon copies of one another with a progressive increase as the weeks go on, aside from rest weeks. Now, I'm sure you've heard me cover in previous videos that rest weeks are dedicated to allowing your body to absorb the gains of the hard work that you've put in weeks prior. For me, it's 4 weeks prior. So in that 4-week sprint, we'll just call it a sprint in project management, oftentimes we'll consider an isolated period of time a sprint, because in that time you're typically focusing on, say, a core objective. So in that 4-week sprint, I may be focusing more on running or more on cycling or more on swimming. But I could also be focusing on narrowing in on a specific discipline like cycling power, max power output cycling, or increased VO2 max in running, or increased threshold pace in running, and so on and so forth. You can break these down almost indefinitely the more nuanced you get with your training. So tangibly, or very specifically, in each week to week, say in this past 4-week block that I'm in, I've been progressively increasing the number of intervals that I'll take on a Tuesday interval workout on the track. Now, these are always workouts on the track, so that's one variable consistent. The second variable that's consistent is it's always on Tuesdays. And to the best of my ability, I try to do them on the same day every week and the same time of day. Now, with minimizing the number of variables that you're changing in the workout, it becomes very clear if you're improving or regressing. Or, you can have a tired day or a good day. And typically, the more consistent you get, the more good days you have, and the less bad days you have. As you're increasing the repetitions per week of, say, an interval day, you can directly see from your, the magical app called Strava, how you're trending, and you can also tell how you're feeling at the end of each workout. So yesterday I had a relatively hard interval workout that probably 4 weeks ago would have had me down for the count for the next 3 days. And if you saw me last week after my interval workout, where this week was objectively harder, last week I was sore for many, many days after the workout. This week, I hit the workout and I felt really good in the workout. That was one small win. But the second small win was how I feel today, the next day. So hitting a performance goal yesterday, I PR'd my half-mile interval. And my overall, how I feel as a total system, I could tell that my body is acclimating to the training, and I'm becoming clearly more fit by how much recovery my body requires after a workout of this difficulty. So those are two small wins that I've even still been thinking about throughout pretty much this whole day, just because of the way that I structured my training. Now, poorly structured training example would be, maybe on Tuesday one week I do an interval workout, then the next week Tuesday gets really busy, so I do it on Thursday, then the following week I do it on Tuesday again, or Wednesday even, and I'm not making sure to, keep track of the intensity. I'm not tracking my lap time. I'm not tracking the distance that I'm running overall. I'm not, specifically modifying the number of intervals that I'm doing in a session, and, keeping track of my total exertion or total strain per activity. Then you're really asking for, one, you can become overtrained, and two, you'll have no clue how you're progressing throughout your training because everything is so random. And without being able to trend a line, as to say, I seem to be making progress week to week, that's a recipe for just feeling off track in your training. And you'll notice this in subtle, small subtle feelings or hints of thoughts that pop up, where you might just feel a sense of being lost or confused, or name a feeling that you probably felt in your training where you weren't sure if you were progressing, frustration, and you can usually trace it back to not coaching yourself properly or not being coached properly. That's the benefit of having someone with experience on your side oftentimes, but yeah, that's for another day. So how can you start to implement these small wins into your daily life and your training? Well, I mentioned it before. There's a fun little app called Strava, where if you're not on it, it's fun, get on it. You can be part of a community. You can know or build relationships with other people who are doing the same thing as you, which is great. But what it really does that I like is it keeps track of your PR record. So you can see exactly how you're trending, one, over a period of time, and two, it'll, at least for like the first year or so of doing it, getting PRs is harder and harder as you progress in your athletic career, because you're fighting for marginal gains at that point. But in the beginning, if you start with a new account, everything is a PR, and then over the course of a full training cycle, you might be like getting legitimate PRs pretty much every week or every other week as told by Strava. And it becomes very fun to look at your data after a run and like actually see like, okay, this is literally the fastest I've ever done a 400 meter. This is the fastest I've ever done an 800 meter. This is the fastest I've ever done a mile, and so on and so forth. And it's broken up in many increments like that, where you just get a lot of bang for your buck. It's free, obviously, and I'm also not endorsing it, nor am I affiliated with Strava in any way. It's just an app that I've used for a very long time, and I've found that, especially in like the hardest parts of this last training cycle, I found myself like almost the first thing I did every time I got home from a workout was like hop on Strava and see like how many fitness points my stats went up by, seeing how fast my fastest split was, seeing my average heart rate on the run, which is another metric that I really like to track, just because for me, knowing how hard I worked or how hard the workout felt, knowing the average heart rate that I was putting out is like a great indication of how fit I am or how fit I'm getting and how well I'm trending overall. So these are just a few tips related to allowing or using small wins to your advantage in Ironman training. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you like the video, please subscribe, please like the video, and I'll see you next time.